Geekly. This week, I don't know what we're going to talk about. That's Mike's problem. But now, your host and two-time fantasy football champion, Mike Indeglio.
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just sneak peek at a couple of geeks, talking about some of the things getting them through their past few weeks. We are back, baby. It is a new year, 2024. I'm back from the high seas. Nick's at work, back to work. Keith is back in the basement. And we are... Keith, I'm noticing some shallow depth of field. Did you get a new camera?
I did not get a new camera, but OBS just put out a new filter that I can digitally blur my background a little bit. So we'll see if it melts my CPU, but I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, you look great, man. Never saw
But
you
here's
more
my question.
focused.
Are we doing the background in post?
Yeah, we are. That's how behind we are right now. I've got a green screen our own show in because I don't know what we're talking about.
That is a mess. We could have just planned it for like 3 minutes, but no, that's not what we do here.
No, I forgot all about it until last night. Okay, so let's start. Happy New Year, everybody. Does anybody have any exciting breaking news, or should we just kind of like talk about what we did over the holiday?
Well, I mean, I guess my breaking news would be like what happened on the holiday, but yeah.
What happened on the holiday, Keith?
Well, you obviously did not remember, but certain Nikolay had a pretty significant heart surgery.
Oh my God, I did forget, and now I feel like a terrible human being. You put me on blast. Talk to us. How is our patron? How's your father? How did that all go?
Absolutely. First off, hi Nick.
But yes, my brother's here. We brought Nick in because I thought he watched some stuff for sure, so he'll talk.
He definitely watched something.
This is true.
No. So Nikolay Ivanovich Lobachevsky, a.k.a. my father, that's not his real name, but he doesn't want to associate his real name with this show, and Lord knows we all understand.
Yeah.
So he had 2 days after Christmas, he had sort of, I guess would probably be considered emergency heart surgery to get a heart valve replaced. So it was one of those things where like we didn't know about anything. That he got a test. It's like, oh yeah, he could. This is very, very serious. Anyway, it went great. The team at the University of Vermont Medical Center, which is, I was born there, but I don't think I'd been there more than once since birth. That facility is amazing. Treated him really well. Surgery went well. He now has a piece of a cow in his heart.
Oof.
Because what they do, they run a wire up through your artery, up through your femoral artery, and another wire through an artery in your wrist. And they jam a piece of a cow up into your heart, then snap it on to the other valve, and you get one shot at it. Like if it doesn't work, you're that's it. And my father, because he's him, over Christmas, instead of like watching the Peanuts special, we watched somebody do the surgery before he had his surgery.
Right, naturally.
Which was horrifying, but also incredibly informative. The technology is astounding. But it was a little dicey for a bit. But the crazy part is, now, here we are recording on the 8th, and he had the surgery on the 27th. He is 100% go on everything.
Really?
He was out freaking hauling wood.
Nothing. No ill will. No, just
better
rocking.
than he was before. Because like when you have a valve going wrong in your heart, right? What happens is it calcifies, and so it doesn't open fully. And so the blood in your heart starts spraying like you've got your finger over a hose. And so as opposed to just the open, close, it's always a little bit closed. And so that pressure builds and builds and builds and builds. So he hasn't had full blood flow through his body to his brain or whatever in like a year. And we didn't even know it. So, it was one of those things like it's astounding what we can do in medical technology because when he went in, based on the numbers, like he could easily have been, like days or hours from just like flat out, that's it.
Just kicking it.
Game over. And there's nothing you can do at that point. And then a week after the surgery, he is like better than he's been in years. No danger. He can go out and do all of his crazy stuff, and it's unbelievably crazy. So it was one of those things that were like, it was a little stressful there for a bit. But now, astoundingly, he's doing fantastic. So,
well, to wrap it in a cliche, what a gift, right? What a great holiday gift to receive.
For sure. And I'd like to thank his primary care doctor, who just was like, "Oh, you should get that test." Right?
So it wasn't he was feeling bad, Keith? This was like an actual
he didn't realize he was feeling bad. I think he did once he found out about the test. But it's one of those things, like he went in for the test, just like a routine test, and they like took one look at it, like calling a cardiologist immediately, and like they were just like people frantically going around because he was like, "Oh, you're literally your heart's about to explode," and he didn't even know it at that point. So his primary care doctor who did that, Dr. Gupta, who was a surgeon, nailed it. It was very difficult, apparently, and he was without wanting to like overdo it, but like the surgeon came out and was like, yeah, that was but it nailed it. And then the people who took care of him at the University of Vermont Medical Center were just first class from top to bottom.
We salute you all.
Yeah, very grateful to
a cow somewhere who gave
a valve. It was going to be between a cow and a pig, so we kept asking if he was going to be beef or pork, but turned out to be beef. So, but we're all very relieved. It ended up being a pretty quiet holiday before, because like, oh, Dad, you can't lift anything over like 3 pounds or you might die. So we'll just really chill over Christmas. That was our plan.
Well, that's amazing to hear. And, since the last time Nick's been on the show, Nick is also part not human anymore. I think there's some titanium.
Oh, you got a bionic hip, right?
Bionic hip, yeah. Titanium, ceramic, and a little steel and a little plastic. So a whole lot of that going. Yep.
How does it feel? How's the recovery going?
Recovery's going great. It's every day does get significantly better. It's just overall... it's a long process till you're 100% in terms of, no physical restrictions and things. So, just doing the PT, trying to walk as much as possible, back in the gym a little bit, but just taking it easy, which is, no
and do you think that, I mean, it's a stupid question, but like, was the wrestling a part of why this was necessary, or?
Yeah. It was more, actually, it turns out I was born with hip dysplasia, which I had no idea. And, you've heard stories on the podcast before about Rita, our matriarch of the Indeglio family,
yes.
Who, even if they had told her that I had hip dysplasia, she would have forgotten and or ignored that fact. So, Mike, who has had surgeries that no one even knows about or recall. Yeah. It's highly possible this was a known thing. However, all of the wrestling and cheerleading and gymnastics exasperated it. So the replacement was required much sooner than maybe otherwise it would have. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, but you're feeling better and
feeling better. Not the back pain that was debilitating before is not anywhere near what it was, which is just a relief for sure.
And how long until you have to go for the next one?
Well, that depends now. Like, could be 1 to 3 years, could be more than that. I am now even. My legs are even for the first time. So I'm actually, when I stand or walk, it's just everything feels very different. Even my gait is different now. So if I'm smart and I can, I properly rehab and everything else, it could slow the deterioration of the other hip. So I don't know how long, but definitely, hopefully, a long time, because I don't want to have surgery again anytime soon.
I mean, the important thing is you have one more thing in common with the Undertaker.
This is true,
you're basically the same person now.
We always kind of were. I mean,
for sure, sure.
Yeah.
Although with the legs different, like that's more Kevin Nash.
For sure. And when you look at like after his surgeries, the atrophy he experienced, that was crazy town. It is, but when Keith, back to like when you're talking about the medical miracles, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
They essentially, like, you look what they did with your dad, right? Replacing a valve with an animal valve, and we see stories all the time now, like with these
through an artery.
Through an artery, right?
We're not even cracking them open.
Correct, which is even crazier. Then you look at, in a couple of rooms down, my one assistant principal who had a heart transplant several years ago. Think about that. They removed her heart and put another human's heart in there, and then reattach it, and then you're all of a sudden living.
One of my childhood friends, he's no longer with us, sadly, had the very first heart and lung transplant at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And while still not common, you just look, even that procedure has now.
Right. I mean, this was back in the 80s, 90s, very early.
It's just crazy. So with the hip operation, they literally they cut into your, they slice your leg open about 8 or 9 inches. They go in, they saw off the hip socket from the femur, replace it, and then use this contraption and then computers to all make it even, and then sew it back up, and the next thing you know, you're literally, you wake up and you're walking around.
Yeah, I mean the orthopedic stuff is nothing now.
It's just
a bone, right? You can replace that.
Yeah, science is something special for sure. But the bigger medical issue for us over break was we thought Teddy, the dog, which we adopted in April, who had $8,500 reconstructive jaw surgery to save his life in April. He was re-injured, and we thought we were going to have to put him down. The emergency vet clinic insisted he needed to be put down. I had to fight with 2 veterinarians and my wife to not put him down.
Wow.
Because as it turned out, he was just so disturbed from disturbed's not the right word. His jaw was basically considered a salvage, which means unless you knew of the surgery or had x-rays and could actually see it, you would think he was a smashed up pile of bones, I guess.
Right,
so anyway, long story short, a couple $1,000s later just for the emergency vet, but it turns out he's fine. And it turns out the dog that we thought attacked him didn't even really attack him. Just kind of probably headbutted him and caused a little nosebleed, basically.
Yeah, I was literally we were leaving port, and I just was getting texts, and he was like, 2 of the dogs gotta go. And I was like, Merry Christmas! I just sailed away. And then 3 days later, I was able to learn that everybody lived, and I was like, oh, well, that's a happy Christmas tale.
Happy ending.
I didn't know what I was going to get when the service popped back on.
So Mikey, we've now had old men talking about medicine for 45 minutes. Give us something what the young kids do with their darkened hair.
Yeah, astute viewers will notice that I've youngified.
That is a damn lie.
Yeah, I've had to go. I went out to the high seas to be a rock star for a little while over Christmas break, which was nice because for the first week I got to take my wife Jen, who has never been able to come on one of these cruises with me, and we had 1 day of good weather. And so we were in Old San Juan, Puerto Rico, and had just a lovely, lovely day together. She got to see the show, and then it rained the other days, so we were in nice ports, or it was cold, and then she got what we think was either GI or food poisoning, because she's never been on a cruise ship before, so she doesn't have those antibodies against the nasty, disgusting people that sail on the 7 seas. So she threw up for about 24 hours straight. And I had to be the a-hole in the other room being like, just in case it's contagious, I'll be over here. Have a good day. Let me know if you need anything.
At least you had another room. It's a cruise ship.
We didn't have another room. I had to leave the room. I went to the... So these cruise ships are 7,000 people on just a floating city. And you get to see just the absolute...
Floating city.
Pits of humanity, of people just coughing on the food and all these things. But... To our point, what has been pretty cool to see, even over the kind of past 5 or so years I've done these types of gigs, is the advance in technology. It used to be you were lucky if you could. I went to the South Pacific about 6 years ago, and I was lucky if I could send an email over about 6 hours. Right, it would just send out little kilobits here and there, and then every once in a while maybe a picture would send. Now they've got the full boat satellite internet, and I was watching the Eagles games. I was streaming Netflix. I basically didn't miss a beat. There was occasionally when everybody was on, it would slow down a little bit, but you can get pretty good. I'm watching 480p Netflix on my laptop in a stateroom. It's pretty crazy. Not only that, they have these state-of-the-art theaters, which I actually have some footage to show you towards the end of the show. And the lighting rigs are basically Broadway lighting rigs. They've got full, like 48-channel mixers to mix all the sound. And they do it so fast. So they get our show like a very basic lighting plot in advance. They get sort of a vibe of what our tracks are like. But then we get an hour and a half to tech the entire show. So usually, Keith will tell you in a theatrical performance, you get about a week to tech a show, and you're doing 12-hour days for that week. Here, we get 90 minutes, and these guys somehow whip together a light plot. When you see this footage, you're like, wow, it looks like that was planned out. But no, it's basically on the fly, and it's pretty cool. The story I'll share with you, Keith, because there's no shade in this. So the show is tracked. We were told you can, you bring your charts. Like if there's a band, you give them the charts. And if not, you've got the music on your thumb drive.
On your iPod Shuffle.
Yeah. So we get there and we do our first set of shows and they go pretty well. We were using the tracks and it was very well received. And then we go to see one of the production shows. So they have like a cast on board who also does shows. And they had this kicking band. And we're like, oh, I thought there was no band. And they're like, oh, well, we didn't know you could use the band. And we're like, oh, yeah, how about we just use the band next time? We're like, yeah, let's use the band. Yeah, rad. Yeah. So we give them all the stuff. It's like a week goes by. We show up and they're like, hey, we just got the charts this morning. Now, I know for a fact they got the charts earlier, but whoever was disseminating said charts, they got them late. And so we're like, okay, well, let's just like throw some stuff against the wall. And the rehearsal went okay. It was like an hour. And there's some stuff. We're like, well, let's, keep an eye on this because that was wonky. Anyway, long story short, we get into the show and they just either couldn't hear the click or they didn't catch the changes or what was happening. But we had to literally stop a Beatles medley in the middle of this. It went so horribly awry. We had to stop a number, which is like you never do. It almost never happens. But our fearless leader, it's his group. He was like, I love the Beatles, and I can't stand to listen to them get destroyed, especially by us.
Oh, no.
Oh. So it puckered everybody's butthole, and we were real focused for the rest of the show. And so then we had to fire the band, basically, because we had a 9 o'clock, too. And we had to basically be like, sorry, guys, this just doesn't work.
Did they get paid more to, like, sight read an entire show? Or
No, that's their gig, man. That's the gig. They just
they're like the ship band,
house band, yeah.
House band.
So they actually they ended up getting the night off. So in a way, it sort of was a favor because it was New Year's Day and everybody was hungover anyway. So, but it's exciting if nonetheless. And there's people.
I would add though, Keith, I would say because I got to watch the video they took of the show. Aside from the Beatles number, the other. Because I saw the one show they did that was just, tracked, and then the one with the band. It was really cool with the band.
Oh, yeah. Like, the vibe is much better with live musicians. Always is the way.
Yeah. It's always better. Oh, I definitely want to see the Beatles fuck up.
Yeah,
sure.
I'll show you that off air. But because I don't want to put anybody on blast. Once again, it's not a blame of the band. I mean, they're sight reading these charts, and they're mostly medleys, and those are really hard. You're changing tempos. It's
really dicey to do. Yeah. Like sight reading medleys, like, you do a Beatles tune. Yeah, okay, the Beatles tune, but medleys are craziness.
But interestingly, and this just shows my sort of very American understanding of culture. There are certain bands and certain songs you just assume people know. But when you get to different countries and different cultures, not everybody loves Elvis. Not everybody knows Tina Turner, right? The music that is iconic to us is not necessarily even in the standard musical lexicon other places. So if you're like, oh, this is simply the best, it's like dunka ga dunka ga. It's in the floor, right? Or even Queen, right? There's a change into Queen, which is like dun 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 ba dun 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 dun. And be like, instantly what song I'm singing, right? These guys had no idea, right? The bass player was like, what? Where's the one? And I was like, it's Another One Bites the Dust, man. It just isn't. There's no communal language there, so it was a treat. It was a treat, but it went great. And then it just got back. It was a 7,000 passenger cruise ship. This thing was enormous. We sailed up next to the Disney Dream, which is like their flagship, and it dwarfed it. It was like half the size. So anyway. That was sort of the holiday, and now we're back. An experiment I thought might be fun is let's talk about, we'll go around the horn here. Just one thing over break that you watched, you played, some type of media you consumed. Nick, I think we'll let you go first because you've got a few things I wanted to give you opportunity to talk about. There's a game you played I'm interested to hear about, and there's a movie that we both watched, but I watched it on a little screen on a screener. So I'm going to give it another chance because you were high on it. So let's hear.
That's true, and as Keith mentioned in our text thread when we were arguing college dissertations, essentially over our thoughts on the movie.
Well, I was like driving back from Vermont, and like my car was breaking down, and I'm just like ding, 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 ding on my phone,
and having to read about Zac Efron of all people.
Yeah.
I know
how jacked up he is.
It's really funny.
So I'll start with Final Fantasy 16 because I've actually never played a Final Fantasy game before. And after taking the challenge from Mike to platinum Spider-Man 2, the video game, which I was so into, like that was like 3 weeks of intense video gaming, and actually achieving like the platinum status, which I never go that far into games. So I'm like, I got to play something else, and it had caught my eye because it's the first one in a few years to be getting good reviews. So I started Final Fantasy 16, and actually,
17?
Really, I'm sorry, is it 17 or is it 6? I thought it was 16. Maybe it could be 17.
17 is the new one.
That's a lot of numbers. So
yeah,
with the exception of WrestleManias, I have a hard time keeping track. But anyway, it is fantastic. Like the story is really good. The emotional beats are really good. The music is epic.
The son got like ostracized from the kingdom. That one?
I think that's several of the plots, depending on
there's 17 of them.
Yeah, there are 17, and with other stories that go in. But yeah, essentially, it's their royal families on this continent, where each one is represented by basically someone who embodies the spirit of a Godzilla type monster, like a huge monster, like your mecha essentially, except they're all from nature or whatnot, and he becomes the protector of one, and then the whole story unfolds with a lot of subterfuge, very Game of Thrones-ish, but done really, really well. And the combat system is excellent, the voice acting is tremendous. It's actually like I expected it to kind of fall more on the side of like an anime type game or a JRPG or something like that, and it's not like that at all. Or even like a Devil May Cry, where that's so crazy and wild that you really don't know what's going on, but it's cool. No, this is very story driven, very easy to follow and understand with cool gameplay and mechanics. So I'm actually really enjoying it and trying not to rush it. Like whenever I'm, how you play a little bit too long, you start getting tired and you you should probably stop, but you keep going. I'm actually able to stop and be like, nope, I want to actually enjoy what's going, like the next cutscene and everything that follows, because it's been so good. So first time I've played a Final Fantasy game, but also one that I'm really enjoying quite a bit.
All right, so that's Final Fantasy 17. That is by Square Enix. It's available on PlayStation 5 exclusively. I think Windows too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I was going to play that, but no, I can't. I can't do that.
That's not for you.
Yeah.
Also, I think they have one of the bigger upcoming releases this year in Final Fantasy 7 Remix Part 2, which people have really enjoyed as well too. Is this action combat, or is it more real time, or like?
No, it's more real time combat. In fact, there was a lot of controversy when this one came out because it kind of strays from the previous formulas that have been very popular in the Final Fantasy games. And I think either in 15 or 16 they kind of started moving towards that. Mm-hmm. But they say that they really nailed it in this particular iteration, which is what I've been experiencing for sure. It's also impressive that each one of the Final Fantasy games, because I didn't know this either, it's a completely different universe and standalone story in each game, which I'm like, wow, that's a lot of years of creating completely different, like 70, 80 hour games that have their own, story and everything, which is just, it's crazy to me how studios can put that out.
All right, well, let's go around. We'll come back around to the next thing. So that's Final Fantasy 17, which I think I played the demo when they released the demo because it seems familiar, but maybe I'll go back to that. Keith, what about you, buddy? What's one thing you checked out?
Well, I was going to talk about a video game I just started playing, but I don't remember what it's called. So,
what happens in it? Maybe we can just sleuth it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's sort of like this Norse story about this girl with possibly mental health problems, going through hell to like rescue
Sensua's
something.
Revenge. Hellblade.
Yeah.
Hellblade.
Yeah.
Sacrifice. I think that's the first one.
It was impressive.
Audio design's really cool on that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Super cool. So I started playing that. I'm not really that far into it, but it was like, because I was looking for something to follow up after, like, with a Tomb Raider vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And this doesn't have any sort of like running and jumping, but it does have like puzzle solving, and the graphics are great. So that was fun. But the thing that I found myself into, or not into, consuming, is I got into the Reacherverse.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So I started watching. Well, now all of them, because I was curious, because
even the Tom Cruise one.
There's 2 of them.
Wow.
So
Reacher, famously very tall.
Yes. All right. So basically, it's this like old school throwback macho bullshit. Kind of like a tough guy, ex-military. I've got a mysterious past and I can kill everybody with my fists. Right? It's so like old.
I'm autistic.
Right? It's sort of it's like a Van Damme like 80s or a
He's got like a Punisher vibe to him.
Bit of a Punisher vibe, and who am I thinking of? Steven Seagal. It's sort of like it's like a Steven Seagal movie, but Tom Cruise did 2 movies as this character, whose defining characteristic of the character of Jack Reacher is he's huge. He's giant. And 5'2", Tom Cruise, who's like 60 years old, like, I can do it. Anyway, I watched both of those. They're not good. But the Amazon adaptation, they did like a miniseries starting season 2 now. I'm about halfway through season 1. Again, is it mindless macho nonsense? Yeah, but it does scratch a certain itch, and it's actually better than I expected it to be. And I find it very useful if you are reaching to get to sleep. I can only do about 12 minutes and boom, I'm out. And it's fine. It's totally fine. It accomplishes all of those goals. So I wouldn't like sit down and make a movie night of it, like get some popcorn and really focus. But like if it's just something to have there as a familiar thing to take you off into dreamland, it's enjoyable enough. So
okay, enjoyable enough. High praise.
Yeah, Jack Reacher. Go check it out on Amazon. Enjoyable enough.
So I was going to play a video game over the cruise. I've been saving it from Christmas. I've been saving everything. I wanted to play. I haven't played Super Mario Wonder yet on the Nintendo Switch. And I'll be honest, the last game, and I love video games, the last game that like brought me back to being a child was Mario Galaxy. I remember booting it up on the Wii and playing it for a couple hours and just thinking to myself, I remember telling Nick about it, like I've never like reverted back to 8 years old more than I did in this. He bought me the collector's edition book for Christmas that year. I'll never forget the like instruction book. Mario Odyssey came out. I was kind of lukewarm on it. All the 3D Marios, they're fun, nostalgia, blah, blah, blah. But nothing has like reached out and slapped me in the face Mario-wise in a while. Anyway, long story short, left my Switch at home. I forgot my Switch.
No.
Cruise. So it's sitting right there. Tonight is the night. I'm going to play it for sure. But I don't get to talk about it until next week. So instead, I want to talk about a TV show that I guarantee you have not heard of. I follow a tweet from another podcast I listen to where people just like recommend shows and things. And as I mentioned, I was on a cruise ship and I put this on my list. I didn't get to watch it on the cruise ship, so I watched it with my wife last night. It's a show from the BBC called Colin, C-O-L-I-N, not calling, Colin from Accounts. It is a British half-hour comedy drama. You've never heard of any of these actors. It's by a husband and wife writing team who also stars the main characters, Patrick Baughman and Harriet Dyer. All the tweet said was like, I don't want to tell you anything about this, but watch it. Which either always goes well or is a swing and a miss. This one is an out of the parker. I don't think I've liked a half-hour dramedy comedy this much in a really, really long time. It's got that sort of British/Australian sensibility of comedy to it, very Flight of the Conchords in a way, but also grounded. These two have an incredible chemistry. They're married, so it makes sense. The premise of how they meet at the beginning of this sort of meet cute is very dark. Let's just say there is a accident of some sort that brings them together in a shared venture of taking care of something, and it goes from there. The writing is whip smart. The performances are great. The comedy is my type. Keith, you talk about it often. There's 95% comedy and there's like the 5% jokes. I'm getting all 95 plus the top 5. I mean, this show is for me. I don't know if it'll be for you, but I can't imagine anybody who wouldn't like it. There are one season so far, 8 episodes. God, you got to love the Brits. They know not to overdo it, right? We love to just have too many seasons, too many shows. I'm sure there will be a season 2, but it's on Paramount Plus here in the States. If you have Paramount, which I know we do because we watch Star Trek, you got to watch it. This is great. Colin from Accounts on Paramount. Got to check it out. All right, Nick, swimming back around. Let's talk that movie.
So Iron Claw, I just had to write down Colin from Accounts, which was much ballyhooed because it came from A24 Studio, which has put out some great movies lately.
It's my number one, baby.
Yeah, and maybe that's why it didn't hit as hard with you because of expectations being so high.
Yeah.
But obviously it's the story of the Von Erich brothers, the Von Erich family from primarily from the 80s and the tragedy which ensues, which any wrestling fan knows.
A wrestling family
so
in
Acorns
Texas.
is a...
Yes, yeah, for sure. And the story itself, what was interesting, and I talked about this a lot in our text thread, was I went in with a friend who is also a pro wrestling fan, and both of our experiences being from the Northeast, a lot of the world-class championship wrestling you read about in the magazines. You didn't get to see a lot of footage, except for when they were featured by the NWA. So you kind of had we had a very similar feel going in. Now, since that time, Vince McMahon took everything over and has since bought that library, so you can actually on the network watch a lot of world-class championship wrestling, and everyone knows the story of the Von Erichs. If you're a wrestling fan. Now, I saw the movie over break in the theater. About 20 people came in behind us all together, probably in their late 20s. And at the beginning of the movie, they were laughing and kind of chuckling, to which I was watching it more with a sense of foreboding. So
they didn't know what was going to happen.
They didn't know what was going to happen. And that's when it hit me like, oh, if I didn't know, I would actually find this endearing and kind of funny too. So I actually found myself listening to their responses more than watching it myself through the movie. By the end of the film, there was sobbing, literal sobbing from these people behind me. One person was like hitching. They were crying so hard as we approached the finale there. So clearly it had the impact and the resonance that it looked for with that audience there. And I was just super impressed by, I think Zac Efron was just fantastic as the lead in the movie. Did he look like Kevin? No. But did he look like what you would expect a wrestler in the 80s to look like? Absolutely. And I think I like that the movie itself wasn't about professional wrestling. Like, they framed it with wrestling as the backdrop. And I think that if you weren't a wrestling fan, you probably enjoyed the movie even more because you were able to actually separate their interpretations of what happened during the story versus what you think those interpretations should be. And the biggest example I'd use of that, and I'll end the my piece of it here, is that there were tons of complaints online about the depiction of Ric Flair. And if you were looking at it as, did the actor who portrayed Ric Flair in the movie embody what Ric Flair was, is, etc.? Absolutely not. However, by having these people behind me watching, at that point in the movie, the whole point was that Kevin was starting to become disillusioned and disenfranchised and realizing that there was more to life than pro wrestling. So the way they depicted the Ric Flair character at that time fit perfectly for what they were trying to say and do in the film. If you were just strictly looking at it, wanting a Ric Flair recreation, you weren't getting that. But that's not what the film kind of actually was trying to do, in my opinion.
Interesting.
So really enjoyed it. Thought it sent a lot of good messages. I do think, and I will say this, that Sean Durkin pulled up short in regards to going in as hard as he could have on the toxic masculinity piece that really might have spoken more to the mental health issues and then gotten into, our fear of being in touch with your feelings and being willing to being vulnerable and things like that, which I think contributed to a lot of the real story and the real tragedy. But I'd say another winner for A24.
Interesting. And I know that I have not seen it. I look forward to seeing it. It'll come up on a streaming thing, and I'll be right on it.
Keith will be on the podcast in about 6 months.
Yeah. Give me 6 months, and I'll totally talk about it. Nobody will remember it even existed. But I know that they did a lot of changes for. I mean, they left out a whole brother who also died, because I guess they said it would be too much.
Yes, it would have been.
Yeah, I guess my critique of the film, and I've said it, is very shortly, is I like I said, I think it's well choreographed. It looks great. I think the performances are great. It's just, of all story, there are certain stories you choose, right? Because they're so like iconic or stock that you can kind of fit them to tell a story. This does not feel that way. It feels like they had to make such an abstraction of this story to try to say something. And at the end, I don't really know what they were trying to say. Like Nick said, I think it's trying to say too much and too little at the same time, because they were trying to appease various audiences. It just doesn't feel well directed, to be honest. It just feels it feels sort of aimless and one note the whole time. There's no sort of peaks and valleys. But a good portion of that is I just know the story, and I've seen some documentaries on the story, and there's so much to mine there, and it just feels like they tried to make a Rudy film out of it, and there isn't really any. The hope at the end is that this one brother isn't dead, and he's like, I guess I'm going to keep living. But if this is the only introduction to this story that anybody's going to get, then it does a good enough job, because I think it is an interesting story. Obviously,
it's obviously satisfying for people who didn't know it.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it. I do feel like, even having a cursory understanding of the whole that story, this feels like an 8-episode miniseries more than a single film to me.
Yeah, I really think you probably could have gotten a lot more and hit all of the points you wanted to hit and wanted to make, maybe, and say a lot more than they were able to do in such a short time frame. But I mean, still, for a Christmas break type movie, as long as you knew what you were going into, which those kids behind me did not, clearly, I thought. And again, Zac Efron.
I look forward to in 6 months, when I finally see it, to declare which one of you was right.
Quickly, I'll mention I, despite my better judgment, watched Napoleon, which I had heard.
Oh, I can't wait for that.
Bad things about, but I was like, let me see it, and I watched every second of it. Ridley Scott does epic really well. There are so this movie, interestingly, is not really interested in the war stuff, but the best parts of the movie are the war stuff. There are some baffling things taking place in this movie. There is a comedic tone to it that makes zero sense to me. You have to see it to even understand what I'm talking about. But there are these huge swings at comedy and what seem to be deliberate choices to speak with a very present day 2023 colloquial nomenclature, which
interesting.
And just like some British accents, some just straight American accents, no French accents in a movie about French people, which I'd forgive if they were just like, you know what, foreign equals British, make everybody British. Okay.
Long tradition of that.
Yeah, that's a choice, but that's not this either. It's like Joaquin Phoenix is doing just like cool dude bro in 2020. It's weird. It was like somebody was just like, just do whatever you want, man. Like Maestro, which we'll talk about another time, it is more about the romance between he and his woman than it is about the other stuff, which I think is an interesting focus, like a slice of life focus. But this one was a swing and a miss for me. So if any of you saw it and really liked it, I'd love to hear your take. Let us know down below. But it was not for me. I won't be watching that one again. Keith, you let me know in a year or so.
Yeah, and then look, I'm going to be so busy.
I think their Apple TV is actually releasing it next week and breaking it up into 4 parts. Or that might be Killers of the Flower Moon they're doing that with. One of the two, but it makes more sense to do it that way.
All right. Well, it's another one of those like series of movies where like they release it like no, the longer one's better, and they announce that before they've even released the short one.
And I'll put a cap on my holiday stuff right here with last night. So for years, I've played in multiple fantasy football leagues. One of them being Keith's, and I have never placed higher than I think 4th place in Keith's league. I mean, this is a deep fantasy football league. This is returning guys. The drafts are like 17 hours.
There's no turnover.
Yeah, you like
it's IDP.
You got to draft the Water Boy's Water Boy. I mean, it goes deep. All right.
It's pretty deep. Yeah.
And what's even better is that even if you have a stellar year, because the drafts are so deep and the teams are there are 12 teams, when you get to week 16, 17, 18, you got people resting players, you got injured people, you can't even go on the waiver wire or because everybody's taken, right? You got to like dig deep. You got to do you can't phone it in, which is generally my tactic. So somehow this year I snuck into the playoffs as the 6th seed, had a couple of decent weeks, finally get up into the championship round against the guy who's been number 1 all season. I mean, this guy has been slaying it. And I was projected to win because a lot of his starters were out. They were resting players. But the New York Football Giants not only embarrassed the Eagles last night, even though Keith wanted them to lose.
Oh, God. The only way we could really screw up was to win.
Yeah, and for us to let their, 12th string receiver put up an incredible game, which had me lose my fantasy league. I was going to win, except for the fact that I had one late player, was a safety from
IDPs,
Miami,
baby,
who I wasn't even going to start, but they sat one of the other guys, so I started this guy. He was projected to get 4 points, but in the first quarter, he got an interception in the end zone, and I was like, oh my God, I'm within 2 points. And so I had to watch this football game, and just all I did was train my eyes on this one safety, and I was like, just make a tackle, just make a tackle, just make a tackle. He made the one tackle. I ended up winning fantasy football this year in that league by 1 point. 1 fantasy point, which is like an all-timer, and I won my other league with my friends who don't even pay attention, and I won that one handily. So, banner year, and I apparently I win something. I'm not sure what.
Yeah, now I got to Venmo you money. I hate it.
Oh, I've just been handing you $50 every year.
I know.
It's been nice.
You're going to turn a profit this year. Yeah. Lifetime, not so much.
Not so good. Not so good. Anyway, it was a fun way to actually keep football interesting last night, even though but now we got the playoffs, so football's football.
No, we're gonna unbox your trophies when they get there.
I ordered them last night.
Did you?
Night.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, anybody have any other grab bag? Anything else they want to mention they did over break or they're looking forward to coming up, or we can call it?
That's going to be next week.
Okay, you're right. Nick, anything else?
That's the main stuff.
All right, so I guess I'll leave, Keith. What I have for you here is one.
Yes, we got to get the clip.
I got 3 minutes for you, so I'll have this take us out at the end. So this is the opening number of our Mid-Atlantic Man jam. Train your eye on just, if you can, people with their feet up on their devices, not caring at all. Other people screaming as if Elvis himself is in the building. But more importantly, check out the lights and sound and think to yourself how much programming usually goes into this and how they pulled it off in 45 minutes. It's pretty
That's
impressive.
really cute. I'm just going to watch Boy Band Mike.
Boy Band Mike. I wish it was a little closer shot, but thankfully it's not.
Mid-Atlantic Man!
QR code.
Yep.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any
I'm on the right side of your screen.
All right, MSC! She loves to laugh, she loves to sing, she loves everything. She loves to move, she loves to groove, she loves and love everything. Yeah. All night, oh, every night. So hold tight, oh baby, hold tight. Here we go. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it.
Just spin key.
Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it. I was alone.
Come on, Corey.
I never knew what we loved to do.
Get that shoulder on.
And then we touched. And then we sang
guys
about the
synchronized air
lovely
guitar.
day. Long night, oh, every night. So hold tight, oh baby, hold tight, baby, hold on tight. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it, any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it.
Squirrel.
2, 3, 4.
Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel
Shimmy,
the world
shimmy.
and
Shoulders.
seven
It's all the
seas.
shoulders, Mike.
Everybody
Try to find your mixed voice or your
looking for
falsetto.
something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you. Some of them want to be of you. Sometimes I
So
feel
hot.
I've got to run away. I've got to get away from the
Thrust,
pain you
thrust.
drive into the heart of me. The love we share, it seems to go nowhere. So just take my tears and ask not really yours.
Very skinny tie.
Tainted love,
I hate skinny ties. Hate them.
tainted love. Break it down. Moving on, hold your head up. Moving on, keep your head up. Moving on, hold your head up. Tainted love, keep your head up. Moving on, hold your tainted love. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it. Put your hands together. Any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Any way you want it.
Woo!
Oh yeah. You know what we've learned here, Keith?
Amazing.
LED wall. LED wall.
LED wall.
That's all
Everything.
you need, man. That's all you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen. On that note, let's all warm down. We've got to relax the voce. We'll be back next week. Until then, don't let anybody yuck your yum. Keep on doing the things you find fun and keep on geeking on.